Good morning, everyone. It's good to see you face to face and to be at this event. I appreciate we are all used to the mute button, and this is so much different from a virtual meeting. So thank you so much for coming to the Wi-Fi Design Day today. This session is going to be about 25 minutes. So I had literally one subject I could cover. There's so much we have launched and introduced quite recently. So I could have picked the Cisco and Intel Analytics, for example, where you can see the driver version of that client with no agent on the device. I could have picked the whole series of antennas, the 9100 series of antennas with the DART connectors, self-identifying antennas. But I thought it would be interesting to actually tell you more about high density and the way we're going to change the high density game from design perspective as well as product perspective. So with that, just a couple of things about myself. So I am a mobility technical solutions architect at Cisco, based in Reading. I like to keep my hands dirty, so I'm involved in a couple of things. The first one really is the Cisco Live network operations team. So we are actually the team that goes to Amsterdam, Barcelona, and we actually deploy the wired infrastructure, wireless infrastructure. Essentially, when we have the conference, we bring our kit, we build the network in about 5 days. That's the time when we are actually on site, when we put the APs up, when we configure the controllers. And then obviously you can see thousands of people using your Wi-Fi, which is amazing. So that's that. Apart from that, I'm part of the WLAN-PI development team as well. So if you own WLAN-PI or if you're thinking about getting one, it's been a great pleasure to be on that team and work with some of those smart people on that team. And I appreciate we haven't really spoken about WLAN-PI publicly for some time, but stay tuned for more details on that one. Good. So that's me. With that, I was going to talk to you about the high density and the way we would normally design high density environments. What product would it involve? What kind of features would it involve? And what is the way we would actually deploy it and we deploy it? So this is just a snapshot from the keynote at Cisco Live. I think this one was in Barcelona, one of the Barcelona ones. And the challenge really is, as you know, when you design high density, the challenge is that you have thousands of people literally in the same room. If you put an omnidirectional AP in there, it can hear every single client in that space. So obviously it's a quite challenging game to deploy good Wi-Fi in high density areas, large auditoriums. I'm not going to teach you how you would do it. There are some really good sessions available. We have some Cisco Live recorded sessions as well. There are some other sessions you can watch. So I thought it might be interesting to tell you more about the evolution of the high density design. So the way we would do it today traditionally would be we would use obviously the access points, external antenna access points, and then we have a variety of antennas you could use with those APs, depending on the requirement. We would ideally use dual 5 gigahertz, which gives you 2 nice cells, ideally small cells, as small as possible, so that you only pick up that part of the audience. The other antenna picks up the other clients in the audience, and that gives you really good capacity over the air. The benefit of this is that you can have 2 different antennas, you can have same antennas. Obviously you can aim them, you can change the down tilt on that. The challenge though has been that you're deploying an AP, you're deploying 2 antennas. So you have 2 antennas to mount, you have an AP to mount, that's 3 mounting points. And on top of that, if this was a stadium or any kind of outdoor venue, the challenge would be that you might need an enclosure, put the AP in an enclosure, then mount the antennas. So it's not the easiest to deploy. Obviously, we've done that for many times for Cisco Live, and COP26 as well was a good event. So there's a number of large events like these. From the actual installation perspective, when it comes to actually plugging the antennas into the AP, either RPTNC or N-type connections, in this setup, you would literally have to connect 16 RPTNC connections or N-type connections to get this up and running. So the question really is how we evolve from this kind of setup for high density, which is very flexible, gives you the option to use different antenna here, different antenna there. And we've been really busy, the engineering team at Cisco was really busy trying to work out what is the best solution, which would be really easy for you to actually mount and deploy. And at the same time, it would give you all these capabilities and ideally more than that. So I'm really pleased to talk to you about the Catalyst 9104 all-in-one unit. Is it an access point? Yes, it is. Is it an antenna? Yes, it is. And it actually does much more than that. Is it an enclosure? Yes, it is. So it bundles all these elements into an all-in-one unit. And it has some really cool features for high density, which we will talk in a second. And I think you're actually the first larger audience we are speaking to about this solution. So I hope you're as excited as I am.
Oh yeah.
So just to explain what it is. So the Catalyst 9104 is an all-in-one unit. It is the enclosure with inbuilt antennas, inbuilt high-end 9130 Wi-Fi 6 access point with all its benefits. So it essentially copies all the benefits, all the features of the 9130 external antenna AP, but all that is built in. From radio's perspective, there's Bluetooth radio, there's the RF ASIC for spectrum analysis, clean air, all those great capabilities. There's a Bluetooth radio built into this unit as well. And from client-serving radio perspective, obviously there's 4x4 for spatial stream, 2.4 gigahertz radio, and there are two 5 gigahertz radios, 4x4 for spatial stream again. The beauty really is that if you were a stadium or if you were a large public venue, you don't necessarily want to refresh the switches now. You may not have UPoE or 60-watt power budget available on those switches. The beauty is that you can still power this by PoE+, so that's 8023 AT power, and you will not compromise any features. So you get full feature set with 30 watts on that unit. Some of you may have noticed the access point up there on the wall. So what's that? Cisco deploying APs on a wall. This room actually is, and you'll see it on the next slide, this room specifically is a demonstration room. So it has APs, unconnected APs mounted on a wall. So this is for demonstration purposes only, that there actually is more APs on that wall. So just to compare the 9104 to the previous generation, so if you are going to use the previous solution, you are going to deploy the 2513s, highly directional antennas, we call them stadium antennas really, or it's the ANT 2513, compared to the 9104. So this is an antenna, that over there is an all-in-one unit with everything built in. From the size or the physical footprint perspective, it's very similar to the actual antenna, but inside the enclosure, you have two antennas built in, you have the AP built in, plus the enclosure, plus it has a single mounting point. So that's the beauty of the 9104. I was going to list some of the benefits really for you and talk about a few of these as we go. So the ease of deployment, arguably for me, that's the main feature. That's feature number one. So if you get the 9104, what you get is a single box delivered to you. You open the box. There's the all-in-one unit. There's the mounting arm and a little bag with the accessories. So all you need to do is attach the mounting arm, mount the unit, plug the Ethernet cable. That's it. You get off the ladder, you get to the controller, and you configure your antennas. One of the other benefits, one of the features we've been working on really was long reach or long range. So with the 2513, obviously it has some side lobes, as most directional antennas do. The goal for the 9104 really was to minimize the side lobes and give us nice focused beam, which we could use to make those cells as small as possible and reach as far as we can, really. So from the long-range perspective, Cowie from the US, he deployed one of these, actually probably more of these, in an arena. So this is the actual AP. There's a little person down there who's connecting to that AP. And as you can see, I added the meters as well, if your brain works in meters like mine. So at 43 meters, he got NEC 52 dBm, which I thought was really good. So the question really was, what do you do when you see something like this posted on social media? Yes, of course. You go and you test it yourself. So what I did here, really, and this is Jiri testing the antenna. This is not not an official Cisco test. So what I did was I had the unit deployed on a tripod, and what I wanted to see, I wanted to understand what is the distance between an iPhone and the AP. How far can I go before I get NEC 70 RSSI from client's perspective? So I walked back from the antenna just about 72 meters. At those 72 meters, the client heard the AP at NEC 70. So I stopped there, and my question was really, well, some people might have concerns about the antenna of that iPhone. Is it as capable as the access point? And what I got was the AP actually heard the client better, by a couple of dB better than the client heard the AP. So it was nice, symmetric RSSI from the client perspective as well as from the AP perspective. What this is not saying, really, I'm not encouraging you to deploy these antennas 72 meters high. This is just to demonstrate to you that what expectation you can set. Obviously, if you're interested in this, every venue is different. So ideally, get one of these antennas, deploy it, test it, document your results, and document your requirements as well. This is obviously just a single antenna. So that was my test. I got 100 plus max of TCP IP3 throughput. So that was really good. And now the other two benefits. This is actually the very first time we have used beam switching and beam steering in any Cisco product. So I'm really excited to talk about those and tell you more about these two capabilities. Now, so what is beam switching? So this all-in-one unit has two antenna arrays built in from 5 gigahertz perspective. So you get two 4x4 5 gig radios and the antenna array. What you can do is, in software, from controller perspective, you log into a controller, you create a new RF profile, and in that profile, you can configure the antennas to have either a narrow 25-degree beam width, or you can choose to have an 80-degree wide beam width and have a nice wide coverage. So depending on your requirement.
What was the beam you used in your demo?
In my demo, it was the narrow 25 degrees, the first one. So yeah, this is essentially the first unit where you can, in software, configure the antenna, switch between the nice narrow beam width and the wide beam width, should you prefer the wide option. I guess there's one analogy between this unit and an umbrella. If it's not raining, you want the umbrella to be as small as possible. You don't want to carry a huge umbrella. But when it actually rains, what you can do is you open the umbrella and it's not raining on you at that point. So that really is the beauty. If you like that analogy, I can have a nice focused beam which covers this area, all these lovely people in this area. I can have another antenna pointed in this direction, and that essentially helps those people connect. And I can switch between the narrow and the wide. So what happens inside the unit, to be technically correct, is you have two 5 GHz antennas built into the unit, and you can switch them between the wide pattern and the narrow pattern. So what you can do is you can have one wide and one narrow, if it makes sense. If you have a use case to use this radio for a specific use case, you want to use the wide pattern for a different use case and use a different SSID there, you can do that. Or you can switch both of them into the narrow mode. So that's the 25-degree, highly directional, ideal for high density. And that's not quite that. There's one more capability called beam steering. And beam steering takes if I use this analogy of the umbrellas, I take those two narrow beams, and what I can do now is, obviously, I mount the unit. So let's say I mount it in this orientation, but what I can do in software is I can I can steer each of the beams outwards. So I can do 0 degrees this way, I can do 10 degrees on one, 10 degrees on both, or I can do 20 degrees on both. So that helps you aim the signal wherever you need it. If there is a large screen or any obstruction or any wall between in front of the access point, what you can do is you can steer the beam in this direction. And all this, again, is done in software on the controller. You create the profile, you map the profile to those units, and you can choose between the narrow and wide. If you chose the narrow profile, you can then aim it in software and basically deliver the requirement. From Ekahau perspective, this is not in scale, but it's just to show you how it would actually look from Ekahau perspective. So the first one really is two narrow beams, 0 degrees. That's this orientation. Second one really is 10 and 10. Third one really is 20-20. Then you can use different angles on the two antennas. And then you can have the wide pattern, if you will. So if I was going to do two wide, I can do 2 wide. Or if I choose to do 1 wide and 1 narrow, I can do that as well. So that's how it would look from the actual coverage perspective, how you can aim those beams. From design perspective, there's 2 modes. I'm not going to go into the detail. I think we have a Cisco live session lined up, which will explain all benefits of this. But essentially what you can do is, with the beam steering, you can steer those 2 narrow beams. What you can do, if that's better, you can mount the unit vertically in the portrait mode, which then lets you steer that signal to that audience up there and that audience down here. So you can use that to your benefit. From the channel plan perspective, really, these antennas are really low side lobe antennas. So if you see the patterns, they literally have a nice directed beam, but there are very little side lobes on those. So that helps you pretty much turn off RxSOP. What we would do previously is we would enable RxSOP for the AP to cover its ears, if you will, so that it doesn't hear or it ignores frames that come with a really low RSSI. But with this antenna, you point the antenna, you aim it in this direction. It does not really hear anything which is happening next to it, which is excellent. That's what you want to do in high density deployment. From the channel plan perspective, Unit 1, Unit 2, that's mapped to one of the radios. Unit 2E and Unit 3 bands are mapped to the second radio. So depending on the orientation, you can leverage the longer and shorter throw on the antennas. Where would you deploy this? So obviously, some of you would probably call it the next generation stadium antenna. I'm trying to teach myself to actually call it a all-in-one unit, because that's what it is. It's not just the antenna. And in fact, you can't order just the antenna or just the access point. You can order the whole unit. So essentially, what you get in the box is an all-in-one unit. You attach the arm, you mount it, plug your Ethernet in, and then you configure the antennas in software. From the deployment perspective, this is ideal for large auditoriums, wherever you need focused coverage. Sorry, was it a question? No, it wasn't. Okay, thanks. So that's ideal, but Matt and Mac spoke about a warehouse where they actually use the previous generation of the antenna, the 2513. So that could be a really good use case for this antenna as well, because it gives you all the benefits of the previous generation, plus you can do the steering, so that might be quite useful capability in the higher education and kind of large auditoriums, or when you have really high ceilings and the only option is to ceiling mount. This would be a really good option, and you saw that in the test I did. At 72 meters, I was still able to hear on an iPhone, not using a sidekick. So from a mobile device perspective, at 72 meters, I was still able to push 100 megs comfortably. So those are the use cases. Obviously, any temporary deployments where you come in, you deploy the Wi-Fi network, you have a conference, 5 days later, you leave the venue. This would be ideal. There's literally a single cable to connect, no RPTNC, no N-type connections, no misconnected coax cables. All that is done for you. So that's that. So just to summarize, really, what we have covered. We have spoken about the Catalyst 9104 all-in-one unit. So that's the one on the left. And just to tease you there, as I mentioned, there's a few more features I could have spoken about. I thought I'll mention the 3D wireless analyzer on DNA Center that essentially gives, and this is not to compete with Ekahau, by the way, this gives you a live snapshot of your coverage capacity, and we give you nice 3D view. So all you need to do is to switch from the 2D floor plan, you switch to the 3D mode, and you get nice 3D representation of this. Yes, questions? I'm not sure how we are doing on time, but let's take one question.
Is this only an iOS device?
Yes, good question. So the 9104 is only supported by the Catalyst controllers. So if you have a Catalyst 9800 VM, small appliance, medium appliance, large appliance, that's all supported. I see more questions.
For your 3D planner that you've got there, but not planner viewer, is that predictive data or live data or data from clients?
Yes, so this is live data as seen by the APs and by the sensors. So that's that element. There's more to this. I wanted to touch on this one literally in 30 seconds. I appreciate we could talk about the wireless 3D maps or the wireless 3D analyzer for a couple of hours. But if you're interested in this, obviously the Cisco Live recordings will be available, or if you plan to come to Cisco Live in Amsterdam, that arguably would be the best place to learn more about this. So this is not to promote the event, but this is just tell you that we will have a high-density session at Cisco Live. So if you're interested in this, we'll be happy to see you there. Woo! Thank you so much.